Today, we found a friend of ours in need of help. Let's see if we can help him. Howdy, Fi Guys. I am currently 32 years old, broke, in debt, and ready to rebuild. I love it. I love it. There's nothing better than the bottom of a mountain, all the way looking up. Like, I got a long way to go, but I'm on the journey. This guy seems to be awake, and I'm loving it. I'm 32, making $40,000 a year in a physically demanding manufacturing job. And for years, I just kept my head down. No plan, no budget, and really I was just in survival mode. But lately, I'm done coasting. I want more from life. Here's where I'm at financially. I currently have $6,000 left in student loans, and I'm attacking them hard. I've got $8,000 in credit card debt, split across 2 cards that I can't stand having. Understandable. A car loan dropped from 28 to 18, progress, but still heavy, and $500 to my name after bills. Unfortunately,
Hey, Dom,
I have yes.
Before we move on, Dominic. So one thing before we get into this, because I can already see that this is going to be a long one. Okay. So from a financial standpoint, just when I look at these debts, like just as a general rule, the credit card debt is your number one like issue. Yeah. So when he's saying like I'm throwing as much as I can at the student loans, I think that just from a financial standpoint, we could sometimes we need to put the puzzle pieces in different places.
And that's because of the interest rate, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Just want to make sure.
Generally, student loans interest rates about 7%. On a credit card, anywhere from 15 to 30.
Unfortunately, my hours are unpredictable. So if there's no work, there's no pay. That is very unpredictable. That's tough. I have no idea what's in my retirement account or how to check it. No one's ever taught me this stuff. And retirement feels like a fantasy for people who figured it out way earlier than me. My girlfriend and I dream of buying land, a piece to call our own. But right now, that feels like it's so far away. The real dream, I want to take a year off and finally finish my degree. I've put it off for years, telling myself I'll go back when the money's better, but that day has never come. It always feels like if I stop working for even a second, everything could collapse. But something shifted. I've been listening to this podcast called The Fi Guys, reading more, learning more about how money really works, and for the first time in a long time, I actually believe I can turn it around. Yeah, buddy, that's what I like to hear. So here's what I'm asking. If I took time off to finish school, how would I do it? How do you stay consistent when money's always tight? And what's one system, one habit, one mindset shift that helped you go from drowning to finally breathing? And thank you to everyone who has already shared their story. You've lit the fire underneath me. I may not have it all figured out yet, but I'm awake now. And that future I've been too afraid to look at doesn't feel impossible anymore. It feels like mine to shape. Debt so high, but I'll still try. I'm broke at 32, but I'm ready to break through. Love that. I love that. I love the energy we're coming in with. I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. There's nothing scarier than a man who's hungry. And it sounds like he is starving. So, Chris, where do we start with this one? I know we talked a little bit about the credit card, swapping that for the student loans, really starting to hammer the credit cards more than student loan due to the interest rate. What else do you have for him?
Yeah, for this one, I feel like we're going to go more philosophical and ask more questions than we're going to give answers. But first off, I want to give our listener, our writer here, massive respect for your honesty and your willingness to share your story. Because in all honesty, that is the hardest and the most important step. It's being willing to ask for help. It's being willing to admit that there's at least a problem so that we can start to take care of it. So your main question is, do you have the ability to take a year off to go back to school? I'm going to say that's a very bold move. And it is doable. But it's going to require a solid plan to keep you financially afloat while you're out. Realistically, you'll probably need to still work while you're at school and do them both at the same time. Even if that means a part-time work to help cover the bills and reduce the stress while you study. Because I don't want you to be like, oh, I'm just going to let it all off and just go there, just there. Because the amount of stress you're going to be putting yourself into is going to hamper your school, your study. Regardless of what decision you need to make. And that's a decision that only you can make is, do I go full into student influence as being a student, or do I do a little bit of A and a little bit of B? Because too often do many of us think about if I'm either a student or I'm a working person. And there is no in between. Never shall the twain cross. That's not how the world works. We can always do a little bit of both. But regardless of what you choose, you'll need to build a bare bones budget right now that cuts everything non-essential, so you know exactly what your minimum monthly expenses are. This will help you figure out how much money you need during the time that you're off or in your part-time work phase. Because without those numbers, without knowing the big three like we talked about, without knowing your necessary expenses, your non-necessary expenses, without knowing these things, you are flying blind. And if you're flying blind, the chances of you running into a mountain, a building, or the ground are extremely high. So right now you said you have $500 in your checking your savings account. I know this is going to sound like me just telling you pie in the sky stuff, but you need to start working on an emergency fund that covers 3 to 6 months. And for you, it's not even going to be an emergency fund. It's going to be a float fund to get you from where you are right now to get to where you want to be. So I don't know if that means that you have to try to work more hours, try to find another job, quit your current job. Even if it means picking up extra side shifts or whatever for a little while, that's what you need to do. One thing that I worry about him saying, I want to take off time to go to school. What about your debt? Do you think your debt is also going to take time off while you go to school? Yeah, maybe you can go into forbearance for the student loans. That's an option. Not a great option, but an option. But the credit cards don't care. Your car payment doesn't care. So if I was you, I would focus on taking off those debts. At least the car payment and the credit cards for sure. And we've talked about ways to take off debt. If that's the snowball method, the avalanche method, or the hybrid approach that we here at the Fi Guys kind of came up with. And if you don't know what that is, you can listen back to, I think, just 2 episodes ago in the Fi Crash Course. We talk all about it. So we talked already when Dominic was reading the letter that the credit card is your highest interest. If I was you, I would take the avalanche approach and attack that. It's luckily for you also one of the relatively smaller ones. So I would start there. And keep making minimum payments on everything else to avoid penalties. That's something that's very important. Just because I say attack this thing first, it doesn't mean at the expense of everything else 100%. If you're 100% on I need to go back to school, I would consider talking with your lender about hardship programs or refinancing, especially on the car loan. Sometimes you can reduce your payment or even the interest rate temporarily, which for right now could be a lifeline. Now, you said something that I thought was kind of funny. You said that I don't even know how to check my retirement accounts. That sounds like an excuse to me. You have an HR department, you have someone at work, you have people. You need to be the hero of your own story and figure that out. You need to know how to open and review your retirement accounts right freaking now. Even if you can't contribute more, understanding where you stand will help you set long-term expectations and goals. But sitting here in this mire of, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything, is not going to help you. Most importantly for you right now is, it doesn't sound like we have a spending problem. It sounds like we have an income problem. So you need to look for ways to increase your income, whether that be side hustles, freelance gigs, or things to be able to work flexibly around your school schedule and your current work schedule. And I know it sucks. I know it's hard. I know that it's so much easier to say, just go make more money than it is to actually go and make money. But you asked me, what is one mindset shift that helped? And it's focusing on the small wins and on consistency over perfection. Celebrate your debt payoff plans. Each dollar saved is a dollar closer to where you want to go. Finally, I want you to communicate openly with your girlfriend about your goals and your expectations, because we need that teamwork mindset. It's going to help to make this journey substantially less stressful and much more sustainable when you're on it. I really want our listener to remember this, and to all of our guests and listeners right now. It's financial independence isn't a race. It's a journey. Every step forward counts. And you're already moving in the right direction. And that means something. So you ask the questions, can you take time off to do school? Maybe. How do you stay consistent? Tiny little wins, focusing on that. Mindset shift and habit. We've already talked about that, but I want to give you another one. You need to take extreme ownership of your life. There's a lot of, oh, well, I didn't have these things, or somebody else, or it wasn't for me. That doesn't sound like someone who's taking ownership of their life. That's something that you need to work on internally to figure out for yourself. And I would also question the validity of if I need to go back to college. What's the purpose? What degree are you trying to get? What is the higher goal? Because if you just want to go back to college because you feel that if I go back to college, everything will be better and magically the heavens will open and I'll finally have all the money that I want, that's not really true. And Dominic, I want to talk about one thing that I think is really important that I haven't really brought up. This is something that I find a lot with my clients. They use this saying, well, Chris, if I do this thing, it'll finally work out. And I go, how do you know that? And they say, well, Chris, it feels true. And to our listener, I want you to think for a second. Is truth a feeling? Did we develop over millennia to feel truth, to intuitively understand truth? I would argue no. We don't see truth in any way, shape, or form. We hear 0.3% of what sounds are out there. We see 0.2% of the electromagnetic spectrum. We are running our entire lives through this biological entity on this effed up operating system in stories in our mind. It's called your frame of reference. We don't know what truth is. Feeling truth is not a real thing. Things feel true if you told yourself it over and over and over again, but that's a belief. That's not truth. It's a belief. It's faith. And those things are important. Those things are the things that get you out of bed, the hope that things can be better. But again, you have to question, is that hope that things are going to be better? Is that truth? And just because it feels true, again, truth is not a feeling. All right, I'm done ranting.
I love it. No, I think that's powerful. I think that's really powerful. Truth is not a feeling. Also, another option that I didn't think you said, and he didn't mention, is it possible to go to school part-time? Maybe take one class at a time after work, right? I know when I went to community college, there was a bunch of people who came in after work, right, to get a higher education. Super common. And you don't have to stack your load of classes. You can take one or two classes, right? You can take it online too, if you want, if that works for you. And I think there's a lot of options on the table, but I mean, I agree with what you were saying, Chris. It's like, what's the outcome? What's the goal? Are we doing this for vanity? It's like, yeah, I'm a college graduate. It's like, cool story, bro. Who are you? Right? Who are you? Right? It's like, I'm a college graduate. I get that. That's what you've done. But who are you? Right? But yeah, I mean, I loved what you were saying about all of that. That was great. That was great. I love the idea of, it's like, all right, what do you think is going to happen? Because it's rarely, whatever we think is going to happen, rarely ever happens that way, right? Otherwise, I'd be a gambling prodigy. It's going to land 32. It's going to land on 15 red. I'd have a much crazier setup back here. But no, things rarely go how we plan. And I think it's important, like Chris said, to always look at not just one step ahead, but 15 steps ahead. Look way ahead and see which way it could go, which way could it happen, and which way couldn't it happen, right? And just try to understand every scenario in the best way possible. But yeah, that's my take on it.
So to our listener, thank you so much for writing in. You're on the right path. Just keep going. I wish there was some magical words I can say that would get you from where you are to where you want to be. Unfortunately, there isn't, because it's a journey, and it's a journey that only you can go on one step at a time. But you're on the right path. Just keep walking it. Absolutely. Walk it with people that are close to you, and know that we're always here for you. There's a community of people that are behind you and supporting you. This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.